All right, so this is some triangle congruence practice. It's based on triangle congruency from the prior lesson. There's no new material in here. So this first one here says given triangle SOX is congruent to triangle WIN, and then it gives us some more information. Okay, so what we're going to have to do here first is draw pictures of triangle SOX and WIN. So I'm going to draw one triangle. I'm actually going to copy this and paste it. So now notice that they are the exact same because it says they're congruent. And then I'm going to put SOX. Now I have to make sure that I put WIN in the same spots as SO and X. So W matches up with S, I matches up with O, and N matches up with X. Now, a really important part, matching up my congruent corresponding angles and my congruent corresponding sides. So I know S is congruent to W, O is congruent to I, X is congruent to N. Then I also am going to match up my congruent corresponding sides. Oh, I keep saying I's. SO is congruent to WI, OX is congruent to IN, and SX is congruent to WN. So the nice part is that if you draw them in the same order, like I went SOX, then I went WIN in a circle there, then you can just like mark them and it'll be fine. All right, now I'm going to switch colors and label what they gave me. So they gave me angle S is 45 degrees. So I'm going to zoom in here so I can get it inside the triangle. You want angles inside triangles. Angles aren't on the outside. I is 2x, so I'll put 2x right here. And x is 3x plus 15. Okay, so now I have to write an equation to solve for x. So the first thing I notice is that this has x in it, and it matches up with this, but it's blank. So it's like, okay, I can't solve for x by setting those two equal to each other, so that's out. This has x in it. It matches up with this, but it's blank. So I can't set those two equal to each other. So I say, okay, well, I can't set two things equal to each other, but I have triangles here. Do I know all three angles in this triangle? Well, right now I have two, but I know that this angle is the same as this angle. So I can put 2x right here because it has to be the same. Now I have all three angles in the triangle, so I can add them all up, set it equal to 180. I have 2x plus 3x plus 15 plus 45 equals 180. Combine like terms. 2x, 3x is 5x. 15 and 45 is 60 equals 180. Subtract 60 from both sides. I have 5x is equal to 120. And then divide both sides by 5. And I get x is 24. Let's see what this problem asked me for. Find the value of x. So this one's done. All right, the next one, similar because it's giving me two congruent triangles. But if you look, will this problem have anything to do with 180? Absolutely not, because I was not given angles. I was given sides. Can I assume that if there's angles, it has to do something with 180? Absolutely not, because I might not be given all three angles in the triangle. So you're going to have to start over and draw it. So I'm going to draw a triangle. I'm going to copy and paste it again. I'm going to label my first triangle GEO. So I went bottom left, so I'm going to go bottom left with M. I went up, that's going to be A, and then to the right, T. All right, I'm going to match up my congruent corresponding angles, G and M, E and A, O and T. Now remember, it's because I went in order like that. All right, now my sides, GEAMEO, AT, GOMT. Right? If I want to spot check and say, okay, GO is marked the same as MT. GOMT. Yes, I did it correct. You could always spot check. All right, now I'm going to switch colors and label what they gave me. They gave me EO is 41. They gave me GE is 37. And they give me TA is 13. 13x plus 2. So I want to repeat this again. This problem has nothing to do with 180 because it has nothing to do with right angles. So I'm going to find where x is. X is this side right here, which has 2 tick marks. I'm going to go over to this side, which has 2 tick marks. I know those two are congruent. If they're congruent, I can set them equal to each other. I have 13x plus 2 is equal to 41. Question, before I start this, why is this here? It's there as a distractor. You're not using it. Okay, subtract 2 from both sides. 13x equals 39. Divide by 13. And I have x is equal to 3. This problem asked me for x, so that's it. I'm done. Okay, the very next one is 4 problems where you have to tell whether the triangles are congruent and what method they're congruent by. Actually, it just says, why are they congruent? Prove the triangle's congruent. So I either want SSS, SAS, ASA, or AAS. I would practice writing those down each time you're doing this so you don't add one that's not there. Now I'm going to go through, and in each triangle, I'm going to mark anything additionally that is congruent. Remember, I can only mark vertical angles congruent or a shared side. So I'm going to start with A. I see vertical angles. I'm going to mark them congruent. I'm going to go to B. I see a shared side. I'm going to mark it congruent to itself. I'm going to go to C. They have nothing shared, and there are no vertical. They don't even touch, so no, no, no. All right, D, there's vertical angles, so I'm going to mark those congruent. Okay, notice I can't mark whatever I feel like it, only shared side and vertical angles. All right, let's go back to this one here. I'm going to look for anything that they have, or not look for anything they have in common. I'm going to look for what each triangle is. This is an S and an S and an A in between. So that is SAS, or side angle side. Now I'm going to confirm with this one. SS, A in between, that's also side angle side. So these two triangles are congruent by side angle side. All right, let's check this one. Let's look at the triangle on the top right here. There's an angle and an angle, and then this side is in between. Let's check the triangle on the bottom. Angle and an angle, side in between. So that is angle, side, angle. All right, let's look at each one of these. This one has a side, and a side. This one also has side, side, side. So these two triangles are congruent by side, side, side. Last but not least here, let's look at the triangle on the left. This is an angle, this is an angle, this is a side. Notice it's not the side in between, so this is AAS. Okay, so go over here, angle, angle, and a side not in between, so AAS. Angle, angle, side. Oh, I put too many A's down. There we go. Okay, last but not least, we have 2 proofs here. So I notice I fixed them so that they are in the order that I said they would be in. Okay, so the first part, remember, I'm looking for congruency statements. So when you're first starting off on these, I would just start by putting congruent, congruent, congruent. So now I'm going to look at the first given. Is this a congruency statement? No. But that means I have to get something congruent from it. I have I is the midpoint of HG. So I know I is the midpoint of HG. If I is the midpoint of HG, what do I get from that? I get 2 congruent segments. My 2 congruent segments are IG and IH. So I have IH is congruent to IG. How do I know? This word right here told me midpoint. So it's definition of a midpoint. All right, next, let's move on to our next given here. HG bisects JF. So I am bisecting JF. So go over to JF. I'm going to highlight, or not highlight, I'm going to trace in red JF right here. It is bisected, meaning it's cut into 2 congruent parts. Also, please realize this is a segment. So this is going to give me 2 congruent segments, not 2 congruent angles. All right, what are my 2 congruent segments? FI and IJ. So now I'm going to mark FI congruent to IJ. Notice I'm using 2 tick marks now because I already used a set of 1 tick marks. All right, now I need my reason. This time I see the word bisect, and I'm bisecting a segment. So this is definition of segment bisector. All right, I'm going to go back to my givens, and I see that I'm out. So now I'm going to go to my diagram, and I'm going to look for either vertical angles or a shared side. I notice that there's vertical angles here. So I'm going to mark this angle congruent to this angle. I'm going to call them angle 1 and angle 2. No, I cannot call them angle I and angle I. So I'm going to say angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. And my reason, once again, those are vertical angles, and I know vertical angles are congruent. Okay, so now I want to know, why are these 2 triangles congruent? By which one of my 4 reasons? So let's go back and look at each one of our triangles. Let's look at the triangle on the left. This is a side, this is a side, this is an angle in between, so SAS. Side, side, angle in between, SAS. So it's side, angle, side. Now I'm going to write my triangle congruency statement. I'm going to write triangle. I can call the first one whatever I want. Let me get rid of these S's and A's here because I can't see my congruency. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to call the first triangle GIF. So triangle GIF is congruent to triangle. All right, so I use G first, okay? Now, people want to say use J next on this triangle, but those don't match up. If you look at G, how it's formed by this one with no tick marks and this one with 1 tick mark. So the angle that's formed by no tick marks and 1 tick mark is actually angle H. Then I went to I. I has 1 angle marking. So I has 1 angle marking on there. So that's I. And then finally I went to F. So I'm going to go to J on this one. Okay, let's try one more. Once again, I'm going to start by saying I'm going to fill in my congruency, 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 because nothing else is going to go there other than congruency. Okay, first one, B is the midpoint of AC. So I know that B is the midpoint of AC. That means I'm going to have 2 congruent segments. I'm going to have AB is congruent to BC. AB is congruent to BC. Now I need a reason. I look right here for the vocabulary word. It says midpoint. So my reason is definition of a midpoint. All right, evidence number 2. I'm going to go to my next piece of given, and I see that I have parallel lines. That does not say congruent, so please don't write AE is congruent to BD. AE is not congruent to BD. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to highlight AE and BD. Those are my parallel lines. Now I'm going to highlight a transversal. So I'm first going to start by highlighting the wrong transversal, and you'll see why it's the wrong one. If I highlight this and I say, okay, now I need an angle in the first triangle and the second triangle that touches both the parallel line and the transversal, okay, you have this angle right here, but then there's nothing else in this triangle right here. And if you're like, this is, no, it's not. This whole thing is. So that's not the transversal that we want. We want this other transversal, which is right here. Now, if you look, this angle right here, oops, let's switch this color. This angle right here, which is 2, touches the transversal and the parallel line. And this one that's 4 touches the transversal and parallel line. What kind of angles are those 2 angles? Those angles are corresponding angles, and they are congruent. So I'm going to say angle 3 and angle 4. I don't know, because they are called 2 and angle 4, my bad. Angle 2 and angle 4 are congruent. How do I know? If I have parallel lines cut by a transversal, then I know that corresponding angles are congruent. All right, last piece of evidence, I'm going to go back to my given, and to my surprise, I have a third given. Angle 3 is congruent to angle 5. So now I'm going to mark angle 3, congruent to angle 5. I need a reason for that. It came from my given. All right. Next, it says, which congruency method would you use to prove the triangle is congruent? So I'm going to look at each triangle individually. So this is an angle, and that's a side in between. Angle, side, angle. And I'm going to erase those because I know that they got in my way last time. There we go. So that was angle, side, angle. I'm going to circle it and then go check the other triangle. If I look here, angle, side in between, angle, side, angle. Okay, congruency statement for my triangles. Triangle. I'll call this first triangle ABE, A-B-E. Is congruent to triangle. All right, so I started with A, which has a double tick mark. So that means I have to start with this one, which has a double tick mark. So in that triangle, that's B. Then I went to B in the second triangle next. B in in the first triangle. B has one tick mark. So that's going to match up with C. And then my last one, E, matches up with D. All right, that's it for practice on triangle.